Hi everyone, my name is Edem Kumodzi. I work with Francis and a couple of other people at Andela. I think, okay, so there is this guy and then Francis and then, okay, so it's just three of us. Okay, cool. So today I'm going to be giving a talk that is a bit different. It's not technical at all, so I think even though it is tailored for developers, I think many of the tips apply to anybody who is, like working in any sort of technical space, whether it is project management, UX design, etc., etc., etc. So the motivation for writing this is I recently worked on a project and I needed to hire an intern, and I found out the hard way that we still don't actually have schools teaching people how to write good CVs. That's one. And then for developers, it is even there is nothing, there's no guidelines, there is nothing really out there. So people are using different layouts, they don't really know what to put in their CVs, and then it just makes things very confusing when you're a recruiter. So I'm hoping that this becomes, this is not supposed to be like a guideline, but pick out whatever resonates well with you, and apply it to your own CV. I'm pretty sure everybody's not going to agree with everything that I put here. That's fine. This is my personal preferences, but I'm sure a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about are things that recruiters would look out for, and if you apply some of them, it will definitely make your CV much better. Cool. So, let's first of all, how many people have CVs? Okay, everybody has CVs. All right. When I started, thinking about giving this talk, right? I spoke to a couple of people. I actually want to give a talk about writing CVs. It's like writing CVs is so easy. Why do you think it's necessary and all that? Some people told me, well, I'm a developer. I don't need a CV. I can showcase what I do. That's true. Some people say, well, CVs are old school. Everybody is online now. It's all digital. I have my Github profile that shows all my work. I don't think any recruiter is ever going to ask me for a CV. And then you have a bunch of people who learned how to code at a much later stage. So they came from more traditional backgrounds, accounting, math, law, etc. And then they got interested in coding. So they feel like a lot of information on their CV is not really relevant to technical jobs. So they don't see why, they even need to spend time to, actually fine tune their CV for technical jobs. All these things are true, but let me break it down to you. It is actually that deep, right? And the reason why is because, you see, for those of you who are developers, think of your CV as, it's like a code base. It's like a project you're working on and you keep fine-tuning it and refining it and refining it over the years, right? It is very easy for everybody to forget things that they've done or they've worked on over the years. It happens to me. I've done stuff over the years that, I had to look at my CV from 5 years ago and be like, oh, I remember I did this, because I wrote it down. You never know what you may forget. So if you don't actually consistently over time, update your CV, you may end up forgetting some things that, could have made a difference between whether you are going to get a job or not. So that's one. The second thing is, many companies, especially down here, still do their hiring through HR departments. So maybe it is an engineering manager who is looking to hire you. So let's say, I don't know, Bank of Ghana wants to hire a software engineer, right? The person who is actually going to be looking to hire you is not the one who is going to receive your CV. They're going to either go through an agency that's going to put out the job and not even tell you that it is Bank of Ghana that's hiring, or they are going to do it themselves, but it will go through their own HR department. And you see, for many companies, you have to remember that the tech part, the software engineering part, is just one department among others. So if they are hiring everybody in one way, you don't expect them to make a difference for you because you work in the technical field and CVs are not relevant, right? So you still need to care about it, because you need to remember that, like, the hiring manager is not going to be the one who is necessarily going to see your CV first. It's going to go through HR, agency, etc. before they get to them, and they may not even care about the CV at all, and they may be more interested in your portfolio or whatever. And the third thing is, anybody who is reading your CV is going to spend an average of 10 seconds or less before they decide whether they want to read more or they are going to skip to the other thing. And the first time I heard this thing, I actually thought it's ridiculous. Like, if I'm really interested in all the candidates, I actually want to, be fair to all of them. But when I had to hire somebody and then I started doing the same thing, I was like, okay, because it's expensive, it's time consuming. You want to be able to skim through somebody's profile and be able to know as much that you need to know about them to decide whether you want to actually read through the lines, click on the links, and stuff like that, and then contact them. And it's 10 seconds. You only have 10 seconds to make an impression. It's kind of like, think of it as you were in the elevator with somebody that you were looking to, get a job from, and he has to basically decide whether he wants to meet with you by the time the elevator gets to the floor that he's getting to. It's 10 seconds. Like, what are you going to say in that time that will make him interested in you, right? So let's talk about what recruiters look for. People will say many things. Like, yeah, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for that. But in one word, it comes down to reputation, right? All of us go to school, and we have all these ambitions. Oh, I want to go to this school because this school is better than this, and this school does this better. And if you think about it, it's really because of the kind of reputation that we want to associate with ourselves, right? So if somebody tells you, oh, I study computer science at Stanford, you're going to think, oh yeah, Stanford is like one of the best schools in the world. So you don't even need to question their ability to, like, be a good computer scientist just because of the fact that they're going to Stanford. It's not necessarily true, but it is what it is, right? So reputation means different things to different people. Some companies would value excellent grades. So if you work in consulting, right? Management consulting, tech agencies and all that, you'll notice that for many of the entry-level jobs, they are always looking at which school did he go to, which school did she go to, what grades did they get, what kind of extracurricular activities did they do. These are things that they are looking out for to sort of like determine whether this person is, because you don't have any professional experience that they can use to value you. So the only pointer that they have is your grades and the school that you went to and stuff like that. So you could be very good at writing code and have done awesome projects and all that. But then if the system goes through something where it's like, okay, we have two candidates, this one is great, this one is also great, but this one went to Stanford, this one went to Legon, who are you going to take? They will say Stanford because Stanford has a higher reputation. These are some of the things that some companies care about. Other companies will say, oh, they want to actually value your professional track record because they believe that school is only about, you go and chew and then you come and pour. So they don't really care whether you got a first class. It doesn't mean anything. So for them, it's like, what did you actually do? When you finished school, like, what were the things that you did? Or when you were in school, what companies did you work for? What internships did you do? What did you build? We want to see that we are hiring somebody who can actually do stuff. And some companies, that's what they actually value. They don't care about your school or whatever, right? And then some other people will consider, like, your contribution to the community. Like, do you write articles? Do you talk at events? Do you do open source work? Because the type of work that they are doing is very community oriented. So those are the things that they care about, right? So you should always know the things that the company you're applying for cares about. That also helps you know what you should put on your CV because it's not everything that you should put on your CV. And check this out, you have 10 seconds. You have to be able to fit like everything that makes you have a good reputation on your CV in 10 seconds. So somebody can just look at it and then in 10 seconds they're like, I want to talk to this guy, right? So how do you do it? So this is going to be a deal breaker for many people, but I believe that your CV should fit on one page. How many people go to Ashesi here or are Ashesi alumni? Okay, then you should walk out because you should know this rule already. The first time I heard this rule was actually from the Ashesi Career Center. And I thought it was a bit ridiculous because, like, if you have 10 years of experience, you can't fit your CV on one page. Like, that's just ridiculous. How are you going to do it? But it should fit on one page. Because, again, you have 10 seconds. The person, so think about it this way. When you do a Google search, right, how many times do you go to the second page? Unless you're really desperate. It's like what you're looking for, you can't find. It's like, okay, so let me click on the second page. So why do you think that if you write your CV on more than one page, a recruiter is going to actually, he or she has scrolled through the first page, didn't see anything, and you expect them to go to the second page. It doesn't happen. I didn't do it. I don't think anybody does that. So you should be able to put everything that matters on one page, right? It doesn't matter whether you have 15 years of experience or you are just starting out. Everything should fit on one page. That would make you think about how you want to present yourself and what should you put on that one page that is really relevant to the position that you're applying for, right? So that's why I believe that it should fit on one page. And then also, remember what I said earlier about your CV being a continuous work in progress. What I do personally is every year I update my CV, right? So at the beginning of the year, one of the goals is, okay, update your CV. What did I do this year? What am I proud of? What are the things that I feel like at this stage, okay, I can take it out, it doesn't matter anymore. And I update it so that it fits on one page, right? If you do that on a continuous basis every year, you can always make sure that your CV is as updated based on what you're interested in doing or what you're looking to do next without, having to exceed, one page, right? Second thing, so this is something that I personally did, but I realized that many people don't do. Hyperlink everything. Like, I mean everything. If your school has a website, don't just put the school name there. Make it a hyperlink and let it link to the school's homepage. If you work at a company and the company has a website, make it link to the company's webpage. And I'll tell you why. I've worked on applicant tracking systems before. And one of the things that we did was we had a ranking system that basically would grade applications based on a bunch of criteria, right? So if you're a management consultant and you say you work at McKinsey, your application gets a certain number of points because we are going to read your profile, we are going to see McKinsey in that list, we are going to actually click on the link to see where it leads to and then determine whether it was McKinsey New York or McKinsey Zimbabwe, and things like that, and give you different points for that, right? And then at the end of the day, we are accumulating all these points and, saying that, okay, this candidate is more likely for this kind of job than this other candidate. So if you don't put hyperlinks there, and applicant tracking systems work in different ways. Companies don't want to reveal, their secretary because you can easily hack it. They're not going to tell you, oh, this is what we look for, and things like that, because then everybody can just write. It's kind of like how people hack, SEO with Google based on what they think Google is looking for to put it on the first page, right? People can hack it, so they don't tell you, but it exists, it's there. So put everything that is relevant in a hyper. If there's a link that it can take you to, then, put a link there, because the way they also do it is, let's say if there was a candidate that worked at one particular company, and that candidate ended up being a really good fit for the role, and they hired them, they're going to look at every company and everything that candidate did, and then add more points to that. So that if you also worked at that company, or you also went to that school, they're going to automatically say, oh yeah, based on the fact that we hired somebody who was a good fit, we can consider this person to also be a good fit, right? So that's why these things are really important. So please, hyperlink everything. Companies you've worked at, projects you've done, so if it's like, public projects, like, there are a bunch of them that are popular in the open source community. So if you contribute to the Rails framework, or you contribute to like React, or all these kind of things, put it. Your email address should be hyperlinked. If you have a website, organizations you've volunteered for, everything, let's everything be hyperlinked. And then, of course, you also need to remember that most likely your CV is going to be read on the computer. I think gone are the days when HR departments will print out CVs and actually be reading them. So if they're reading on a computer, you also need to think about the kind of user experience you want to provide to the recruiter. You don't want them to look at a company and say, oh, I don't know this company, and then they have to go and Google it and they may end up being on the wrong company because maybe there are multiple companies that have the same name, and that may not be. So make it easier for them by putting a link to everything so that if they see it, they can just click on it, and they go and check out the company and say, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. All right, let's talk to him. So this is another one. You should highlight your achievements, not job descriptions. So I saw this very often. So somebody would say he's a software engineer at company X. I know what company X does. So I know what a software engineer at that company will be doing. I don't need you to tell me your day-to-day activities. I know it's a bit controversial, but let me explain why. As software developers, if you take away the frameworks and the languages and things that we use on a daily basis, the requirements are not very different across the spectrum, right? What a senior software engineer does at Umbrella is not going to be very different from what a senior software engineer does at ExpressPay, more or less, right? So if I tell you I'm a senior software engineer at Umbrella, like me telling you my day-to-day activities doesn't really add value to you as a recruiter, because you should know, you hire them all the time, so you should know these things already. So rather focus on your achievements, right? So if you built an application that's helped the company save 30% of their annual budget, that's what I want to hear about. I want to hear about that application. What did it do? What exactly did you do? You know, what stacks did you use, etc., etc., etc. If you, like help make the onboarding process for junior engineers faster so that within 3 months they are able to produce value to the company, and it used to take like 6 months before. I want to hear about that. So the achievements are more important. We are getting to a point where, especially in tech, we are beginning to have more standard things. It's like, we know what different roles are. Think of it like, if somebody tells you they're a lawyer, do you need to ask them what they do as a lawyer? You know what a lawyer does? You can go deep and say, okay, I specialize in tax, I specialize in criminal law and things like that. But essentially, a lawyer doesn't have to tell you what they do as a lawyer, right? At some point in tech, it used to be that like roles were very, it was like broad. It's like somebody will tell you they're a developer, and then you find out that they're doing design, they're doing product management, they're writing code, they're doing testing and all that. But if you look at how the industry is progressing, you realize that now we're getting to the point where even as developers, like there is front-end engineering, there is back-end engineering, there's full stack, there is QA, there is testing, all these roles are defined, right? So telling a recruiter on your CV what your day-to-day is not really necessary. If you write the achievements, right, and then that catches their attention, then they can ask you more about your day-to-day. Let them ask you about your day-to-day. You don't need to write it and waste space on your CV. Okay, now, summarize your tech stacks. Don't let recruiters guess or second guess what programming languages or frameworks you have experience with. So imagine somebody wrote on their profile and then they said, built a WordPress website for company X, blah, 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 right? If I see WordPress, I'm going to automatically imagine that you know PHP, because WordPress is PHP. So then I call you for an interview, and you're like, oh, I only did this on the site. You're like, okay, maybe you just consume the API from WordPress, so you don't even know any WordPress. We're just giving an API to work with. But because you didn't precise on your profile that you work with PHP or you don't work with PHP, you're letting the recruiter second guess you, and that's something, because it is expensive. It's a lot of resources is spent to hire. It just wastes a lot of time. Like, you don't do yourself any favors. So be very precise with the things that you work with. What I personally like to do is I put a summary of all my stacks at the top of my profile, right? Some people prefer to do it by job. So I don't like, the reason why I don't like to do it by job is because if I had a job like 10 years ago where I use VB6, it's not relevant. Like, it doesn't exist anymore. So I don't see the point of having, but some people like it that way because they want to sort of show that even if it's not relevant, this is something I've worked with before. So if there was any need, I can actually, work with it again. It's up to you, however you want to do it. Just be clear on the stacks that you work with, and then don't let recruiters second guess, what you know. And please, if you're not proficient with a particular technology, state it clearly. Some people would say, basic knowledge of X. That's fine. You don't have to necessarily put everything, you don't have to feel bad about knowing just basics about a particular language. Like, not everything you're supposed to be like expert level. That's why if you see some people's CV and they speak multiple languages, they'll tell you they are fluent at French, they know professionally Spanish, and then they are a native English speaker. That should tell you that it is because they don't expect you to be able to know all these things. But then, based on the job that you're doing, some of these things may be more relevant than others, right? So don't just write, C#, and then let the recruiter, because if you're a senior software engineer, and then you write that you know C#, I'm going to assume that you know C# really well. But meanwhile, maybe you only had 1 year of experience with C#, so it doesn't really tell me anything. So if you only have basic knowledge, find a way to state it so that you don't waste your time. So this one, I think, is a good idea to have a website for your name. So I have edemkumodzi.com. So if you Google me, you will see my website before anything else. And because everybody has this thing where they click on the very first link, you want to make sure that if a recruiter Googles you, they are going to your page where you control the content, not on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And the other thing is, because you want to make your CV one page only, it's a good idea to take out the things that you feel should not be on your CV, but maybe they actually should be on your website. So if you've done like hackathons and you've won prizes and you want to put all these things on your profile or you want to write about them, then that's where they will find it. So if you put a link to your website on your CV, if they like what they see, they can click on that link and go and check you out. And if you have even more control, you can even put like Google Analytics on your website so that you can see like who is clicking or where do they come from or where did they click from. So you have an idea of who is checking out your profile online. And then, of course, like, because it's your name, if anybody Googles your name directly, it will always come on top, and that's something that you want. Things you should remove from your CV. Please, remove your high school. I don't care. We don't care, actually. I know it's a big thing in Ghana. I didn't go to high school in Ghana, so I really don't understand it. But people seem to have a very special attachment to their high school. Like, oh, I went to Presec. Honestly, you're just wasting space on your profile, right? High school is really acceptable if you are currently in university and you're looking for an internship. From the time you get your first degree, take out your high school. We don't care, honestly. Nobody's looking at your high school and say, oh, I'm going to hire him because he went to Presec. It's not going to happen. It doesn't tell me anything about you, right? And then check this out. Some people will say, oh, I put my high school there because maybe the person who is going to hire me went to the same high school as me. So if they see that, then they will hire me. But the inverse is also true, because if I don't like Presec and then I see you went to Presec, even if you're a good candidate, I already have a bias against you because you went to Presec. So why do you want to put yourself in that position and then, miss out on an opportunity because you put up a high school and then the hiring manager has something against that school and then they may just make you miss out on that opportunity. So please, high school, don't do it. References. So this is, I think it's optional, but I feel like you should have control over, people that you want companies to reach out to. Let me tell you why. So you could have had a job at a company and then done really well, and all that. So you ask your boss, oh, can I use you as a reference for my next gig or whatever? That's cool. But then, you see, that person may not be at that company forever. You put a reference to that person as if they are going to stay at that company forever, and then, they will talk about your whatever. So the impression that they had of you as you work there, that's also going to change over time. Because if I know you as, okay, you've done this when we're at the same company and all that, I think you're really great. And then you went on to, work for another company, or you decide to get into politics. And then all of a sudden you are in a party where I feel like, okay, you guys are not doing really well. And I know you're part of this political party. And then you try to apply for a job. Then they call me, they're like, oh, what do you think about this candidate? I can just say, I don't think it's good. Because, do you understand? It's like, it happens, right? So you should always, if you are going to use references, then update them as well. Don't keep your references from, old days and all that, or don't do it at all. Wait until Typically, when recruiting companies companies are looking to hire, they would ask for your references after they have actually agreed that they want to make an offer to you, and then they will call your references as a way to check on, like background or whatever. So let them ask you for that if it is necessary. Don't put it on your CV and then, maybe have somebody say something negative about you. Hobbies, some people like to do it. I don't think it's really necessary. I think it belongs more on your blog, if you have a blog or a personal website, because it's just, wasting of space. Like the fact that you play guitar and all these things, it's great. I'm not saying it's not good. Some companies want to, know that they are hiring people who have, certain interests and stuff. But I feel like those are things that should be on your website. Like, it's things that you want a recruiter to know about you after they have actually assessed, the core of what they are hiring you for. So I'm going to show you what my CV used to look like, and then you can tell me what everything that's wrong about it, and then I'll show you what my CV looks like right now. So this is my CV from last year. So it starts with my name, titles, links, summary, my professional experiences, and if you read this, you realize that I basically list my day-to-day stuff. Goes all the way down. So this is one page. This is one page. Then this is page number 2. Then page number 3. So now check this out, though. I didn't talk about any of my skills here. This doesn't tell a recruiter anything. It is on page number 3 that I talk about the things that I know. Awards and achievements, volunteering and causes, interests and hobbies, project highlights. So it's 4 pages, right? If I were to send this CV out to anyone, like, honestly, if they hired me, I'll be very, very confused. Like, wow, you actually read all that. I wouldn't read this at all. It's too much. And this is what my CV currently looks like. It's 1 page. I have a summary section. I put my education down here. Domains that I have experience with. The tech stacks that I use. Languages I speak. Professional experience. And that's it. 1 page. So we can go through things that I've taken out so that you have an idea of if you think your CV is too, or when I tell these people about this thing, they always tell me, oh, but there is so much information on my CV, I don't know what to take out, right? So let's look at my CV again. What did I take out? First of all, education section, look at the amount of space it takes here, right? On the new profile, I simply put it here, 1 line. And I hyperlink the schools so I don't have to write the full name. You see, here I'm writing the full name. Over here, I just wrote it as an acronym. If you want to see, you can click on it and then go and check it out. The other thing that I did was, if you look at, if you look at IT skills, right? I was basically writing, it was a lot of text, right? On the new profile, I simply group them. So tech stacks, Ruby, Rails, JavaScript, databases, API specs, background processing, infrastructure, continuous integration. That's it. So it fits in the summary, right? Then I took out award and achievements. So I personally didn't feel like it was relevant anymore at this stage in my career because you can just Google it and then people have written about it. So it's like there are blog posts out there where you would see some of these things. So I was like, if they Google me, they will find it. So it doesn't need to be on my profile anymore. Volunteering and courses, I put them on my LinkedIn. So that's the other thing I should have mentioned. So some of the things that you can't put on your CV, put them on your LinkedIn. So if it's on your LinkedIn and then you put a link to your LinkedIn profile. So my CV has my LinkedIn profile down here. So they can actually you can actually expand everything that you want on your LinkedIn, right? And keep your CV really short.
Hello, my name is Boo. Yeah. Some people believe GitHub should be your CV. Are you for or against them? If not, why?
Okay, so.
And if you are for, why?
So, I am for and against, and I'll explain why. Depending on the type of company that you're applying for, having a GitHub profile is a good thing because, if you're doing open source work on GitHub, it is a great way to assess whether somebody has good soft skills, right? How many of you have seen like a PR getting submitted to a major framework? You submit a PR to, let's say, Ruby on Rails, maybe like 3 lines of code of change, and then they would debate it like 2 months before it gets merged. And those things would basically teach you, like, how do you communicate in a team? How do you get feedback when you've submitted your code and respond to them, and all these things. So if you have these kind of contributions to open source work, like if you give your GitHub profile to someone, they can go and see your contributions and then say, oh, hey, look at how this guy did this here. It is really cool. So GitLab, for instance, GitLab, the way they hire, they don't even look at CVs or anything. You basically, when you apply, they will send you one of their issues on GitLab, the open source GitLab, right? And explain to you how to set up the code on your machine. And you just have to basically send, a fix to that issue. That's basically your application. Send a fix to the issue, and then, they will comment and all that, and blah, blah, blah. If they like the work that you did, whether it gets merged or not, they're like, okay, we think we can work with this guy, and then you go to the next stage, right? So if you work for, like, a startup, or you're looking to work for a startup, you're looking to work for, like a company where maybe they have like open source work that they're hosting on GitHub and things like that, then your GitHub profile is gold, right? Unfortunately, I can tell you that not all the work I've done is on GitHub, and many people are like that. Not every company uses GitHub, right? So how do you assess me using my GitHub profile if majority of the work I've done is not on GitHub? You understand? So that's where I feel like even if you have a GitHub profile, that's great, but you should always also have a CV so that if anybody wanted to use that as their hiring benchmark, you are not penalized because you don't have one, right? So, and I know people who would tell me that, they write code and all that, but they are not a fan of contributing to open source because they don't have the time, and that's perfectly okay. It's not for everybody to do. It's a lot of work and it's very demanding. So, we shouldn't be looking down on people who don't contribute to open source or they don't have a GitHub profile and say, oh, I have a GitHub profile. I have 3,000 contributions this year, so I am better than you. It doesn't mean anything. But if you do have one and you've done work on major open source projects, then definitely you should highlight that, right? And the way to do it then would be, if you were to write your CV, you can actually start by writing about your GitHub, about why you're awesome and you've done this and this and this and this and this. So that's why I stand. So I wouldn't say it is the right way or it is the wrong way. It really depends on what type of company you're applying for.